up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for the 100th episode of the Nothing Finder podcast. And tonight we are going over all of the action from this past week of college football and couple things that aren't necessarily on the field related but super interesting. Before we get into any football stuff, we are very happy to announce that our first merch through Millions is available. And I would love to take credit for the design because it's super cool. It's badass. But those were the people over at Millions that got that going and designed that for us. We have t-shirts and hoodies available. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift for somebody in your family that's a diehard Dogs fan, go check out that. I want to say it's on all of our social media pages. Maybe not Instagram just yet, but I can fix that. So, how's your weekend and what are you drinking?
Weekend was good. I'm in Facebook jail, so it's been kind of quiet. It's been kind of cool to get away from the phone a little bit. But besides that, I mean, easy, man. 3 day weekend was nice. Veterans Day on Friday. Thank you for your service, you, Wes, so all the vets out there appreciate it. Not really sure why we had Friday off, but I'll take it. But what about you?
No, man, it was good. Had a great weekend in Athens. I talked about it last week, but Thursday night went to go see Charles Wesley Godwin at the Georgia Theater. Friday got to see Georgia beat Wake Forest in basketball. First time I've been to a basketball game where the Dogs won. That was my fourth game and their first win. So I was really starting to think I was the problem, but I'm glad I'm not.
Okay.
Um, Saturday was wild in not the best way. So we left my in-laws at 3 o'clock. Seven o'clock game. We left 4 hours early. We were gonna go park, get an Uber, hang out with one of my friends downtown for a little bit, and then walk to the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what time we finally got a parking spot?
6.
5.
Oh, well, still shit.
Yeah. All of the free parking on East Campus was full by 3:45. Um,
Mm.
all of the parking spots and decks and lots downtown were full by the time we made it from East Campus to downtown.
Mm.
We ended up paying $80 to park at the Classic Center.
How far of a walk is that?
It's pretty much Clayton Street and I feel real dumb for not knowing. It's Clayton and Oconee.
Okay.
So I'd say like half to three quarters of a mile, something like that.
That's not bad.
Um,
We parked when we went to the spring game. We parked right downtown, and then we parked right by Insomnia Cookies. So like it wasn't. Yeah, it was probably about that. It wasn't too bad of a walk, but
this
yeah.
is further than Insomnia because we had to go pretty much to the arch to
Hmm.
to get. I'm actually about to Google Maps it right now.
But for it to be cold, like relatively cold and rainy, to do that walk too, not ideal.
It was 20 minutes and zero point 0.8 miles according to Google Maps of a walk.
Then you had to do that back drunk, more than likely.
I wasn't drunk by the end of the game,
Okay.
but at the end of the game, it was uphill and actually raining harder at the end of the game than it was at any point during the game.
Athens
So
is sneaky, sneaky hilly. That doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
it
Oh, I don't
really doesn't.
know.
But for drinking, man, I got a bubbly. I got a sparkling water. I don't want to say I hit it real hard yesterday, but between when we parked at 5, I had like a 20-ounce Diet Coke that I pretty much filled up with 100 proof Evan Williams.
Okay.
Drank that by the time we got to the stadium.
Hmm.
And then I had two airplane bottles of 100 proof Evan Williams in my boots. Um, and then I promise this was a stupid, stupid, stupid decision. Um, walking into the stadium, I found an airplane bottle of Jim Beam on the ground.
Sure it wasn't piss? Well, no, I if it's an airplane bottle, you're all right.
It was opened. It was 100% opened, but I smelled it and it was whiskey.
Okay.
Um, so I drank that too, and I know it was stupid. I know it was, but
Wow. I speechless. That's wow. Okay.
yep. No one's accused me of being responsible ever.
Whew. All
And then
right.
we got home from Athens probably 15 minutes ago. So
That beautiful, beautiful drive.
yeah. Oh, oh. I'm glad you said that. So if anybody is around the Atlanta area, I'm sure they've seen the pictures of the Thought Patrol car.
Okay.
Um,
I've not heard that.
so it's like a decommissioned cop car that says Thought Patrol on it instead of a
Hmm.
police precinct or police, right?
Hmm. Okay.
Well, the Atlanta Thought Patrol is in Savannah this weekend, and we were behind them for about 30 minutes.
Did they apprehend anybody?
No, but they took the road towards Temptations. So I think they're
Okay.
going to a target-rich environment.
Oh, good for them. I mean, this Sunday's kind of a weird day to be doing that. I don't know how many bachelorette parties are going on right now, but they'll find what they're looking for. That's for sure.
Yes. Um, so I mean, perfect segue. Somebody that didn't get what they were looking for, Texas A&M when they hired Jimbo Fisher,
Hmm.
who was fired this morning. I just, I want to know where I went wrong in my life to not have a job where I can get paid $76.8 million dollars to not work.
Yeah, almost $77 million to go away, to get out. My
Goals.
wife suggested, why don't they just give him a broom and make him like the highest paid janitor in the state of Texas? It might be more effective. But although he's not really good at cleaning up messes, so I don't know.
Yeah, he makes more than he cleans up.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, Jimbo, you're going to get paid to sit in the corner, and if you talk, if you say one word, we're docking your pay.
Hmm.
Just go sit
That's
there.
gonna be really hard for him. That man loves to talk.
He talked his way into getting fired. What's funny is the last public words he said as the Texas A&M head football coach. Do you know what they are?
No.
We are 3 or 4 plays away from being a playoff contender. That was the last sentence of his post-game press conference. And the next news about Jimbo Fisher was that he was fired.
It's funny the timing of it too. We kind of talked about it a little bit, kind of going back and forth when it happened. Like they just beat Mississippi State. What was it,
31
41-10 or
points, I
something like
think.
that? Like they beat them significant. Like it was a significant beatdown. Not that that's really saying a whole lot because Mississippi State is,
Not good
god
this year.
awful. Yeah, but just the timing of it's just kind of odd. I mean, they just now are bowl eligible. Again,
Right.
not that that's worth the amount of money that they've been paying him to just get to a bowl game, to get to like the Liberty Bowl or something like that. But it's odd to happen right now. I get it. I mean, I don't know why it wasn't sooner, but it just after a relatively easy win, they do it. It's weird.
Well, I think big thing is coach or athletic directors have started firing head coaches before the end of the season so they can start their search. I mean, Boise State fired their head coach today.
Oh,
Um,
Harson back to Boise. Is that what are we reporting that?
do what?
Are we going to report Harson going back to Boise?
He's probably their second best coaching program history. It wouldn't be the worst thing to happen.
No, it wouldn't. No, not at all. Oh, his whole
Um,
staff's available.
hey guys, I know Auburn is nice and warm, but let's go back to Idaho. Get the band back together.
Let's run it back, the good old days.
Yeah. What one of the most wild things about this, and we kind of talked about it this off season with Robert Barons, and a lot of people were saying that Jimbo was no way had zero chance to get fired this year because of that buyout.
Hmm.
And I mean, so the largest buyout ever before Jimbo's was, what was it, Gus Malzahn, 22 million?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I think it was a hair shy of 22 million, but that was in 2020 too. Like that was coming off of the pandemic season, I guess at the end of it. And he didn't even have that bad of a season.
No.
He got them to a national championship. He almost got them to, the playoff too. So
Yeah.
he did more or he did less to get fired than Jimbo did.
Yes. I will say probably the biggest difference is Jimbo had won a national title, even though that was quite literally just because Jameis Winston was a cheat code in college.
Um, uh, college Jameis is one of my favorite. Just
College Jameis is like
everything.
autocorrect on your phone. Like you can
Hmm.
make a mistake and he changes it for you
Hmm.
because Jimbo's play calling is just one big mistake.
Hmm. He really, he really should give Jameis some of that money. Give him a tip because he owes him quite a bit of that because there's no way that he would have won a national championship before that. That was one of the issues with at toward the end of his tenure at Florida State was he kind of stopped recruiting, and that's kind of what it looked like this year. I think they were 13th or 14th in recruiting for this cycle too. So like it kind of fell off considerably from like those top five classes that he was pumping out the last couple of years. So they probably got ahead of it.
I think part of that is Jimbo stops recruiting once he feels like he's reached his peak.
Hmm.
But I think another part of that is the portal is opening up recruits' eyes because if you have a huge class and after a year a lot of them are leaving, high school kids are looking at it like, why do I want to go do that too?
Yeah, burn my transfer year or
Yeah.
not. Yeah, exactly.
So this is the year of the transfer portal, and by that I mean a lot of teams, you know, let's A&M specifically. A&M without their starting quarterback, normally they would have no chance at making a bowl, right?
Mhm. Right.
Max Johnson transfers in from LSU. He wasn't the starter this year, but he made up for a lot of those play calling mistakes and poor offensive play and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Yesterday, in the Georgia game, Spencer Sanders was a transfer quarterback. Jackson Dart goes down with what was reported as a collarbone injury and possibly a broken collarbone.
That's funny because Lane said he could have went back in if the game was closer.
I,
So maybe not.
maybe, maybe not. I can tell you that seeing that hit in person and then seeing the replay of it a few times, I don't know if he could have gone back in
No.
because he got sandwiched between two dudes sprinting at him,
Well,
and
hell, I
one of
think
them was over 300 pounds.
I was to say I thought Zion he took a while to get up too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When you hurt somebody like Zion Logue
Yeah.
because he hit you so hard, you probably shouldn't come back in that game. Just,
Mm,
just probably not.
no.
But Spencer Sanders comes in. I thought Spencer played pretty well. I mean, all things considered, the game was pretty much in hand at that point. But
Mm,
he played just as well as Jackson Dart was when he was in the game.
yeah.
Transfer
Yeah.
quarterback.
Hmm.
Um,
Jackson too. There you go.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. I think this is kind of the most parity that we've seen in college football, and a big part of that's because of the transfer portal, which I'm not against that
No.
whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say too, like kind of going back to the buyout stuff. We talked about if yeah, with Gus Malzahn getting the biggest one prior to today. If Florida were to fire Sunbelt Billy, we'll get to him in a little bit. Probably not going to make a bowl game considering they have to go to Como. I'm not going to say it, but
Yeah,
gonna gonna go to Como. Probably lose there, and then they finish at home against Florida State. They're gonna be 5-7. They're not going to a bowl game. They shouldn't have went last year because they got their ass kicked there. But Sunbelt Billy get $32 million. Coach O got 17 million less than 2 years after winning the national championship in 2019. So, God, it's just it must be nice. The best job in the world is a fired college football coach.
like I said, if I just want a job where they can pay me to get fired. Like
Hmm.
that would be ideal.
Failing upward. It's the
I need
American
to
dream.
I need to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I don't think
So
we're gonna get there in this in our lines of work.
no, probably not.
Because if you fail, shit's burning down.
Correct, correct. Okay, so let's talk just for a minute about possible head coach candidates. So from Georgia, maybe Glenn Schumann, and then someone that has accused us of not using facts said that A&M should go after Kirby and throw stupid money at him. I personally,
Mhm.
I think Schumann could possibly look at it,
Yeah.
but Kirby wants three things in a job. He wants the ability to recruit how he sees fit. He wants
Hmm.
facilities to keep up with recruitment. He wants to compete and win national championships.
He's
I
doing
think
that
money is
where he's at right
probably,
now. He's like,
yeah, money's probably sixth or seventh on his list.
yeah.
So yeah, like you could throw $20 million a year at Kirby Smart, and Georgia would give him a raise,
Hmm.
and he would still live in Athens.
The amount of coaches that are going to get a bump in pay because their name is just like thrown out there to be the Texas A&M coach is going to be huge. Dan Lanning, I don't, and we're going to get into it in a little bit here, but like someone like Dan Lanning, I I don't know if he would end up taking it. I think he's probably the most likely to, but he's gonna use this as leverage to get even more money from Oregon because I think they would be crazy to let him go because Oregon's been a feeder program to like Florida State and other places the last like 10 years. So like I mean they like what they have going with him. They don't want to lose him. So, but yeah, a bunch of people are gonna be making tons of money off of just rumors about going to College Station.
So let's go through this just short list, yeah, pretty quick. So Dan Lanning, I think he stays at Oregon, gets a pay raise. I mean, even if they were already in the Big Ten, they would arguably be the second or they would be top three team. And I think you can make an argument for any of the top three spots in the Big Ten right now.
They're built to be a Big Ten team. Like defense. I don't know. I mean, Bo's not going to be there next year, but they're the most Big Ten ready of any of the newcomers next
Yeah.
year.
So the thought that Dan couldn't compete with Oregon in the Big Ten, I don't think is true.
Mm-mm.
Um, so I think Dan stays. Kalen DeBoer, Washington head coach, for if you don't know who that is.
Mm-mm.
I think that's interesting.
Mm-mm.
I think Washington, because of the success he's had this year and last year, I think they give him a raise and give him a shot in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know how long he's going to be at Washington in the Big Ten unless that defense gets it considerably better.
Mm-mm. Yeah, he's gonna have to put a lot into that. I mean, he's the anti Jimbo in terms of like he knows how offenses work, so that might be a good thing with all the recruiting,
That's fair.
tools that they have there. I mean, that could be a good one. But is he a fit? I don't know. Culturally, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know anything about his background, so I don't have
Mhm.
any answer for that.
His name doesn't sound Southern.
It does not. It doesn't. So Lane Kiffin, I think this is an interesting one, and honestly, before I had 4.5 hours in a car with some thoughts, I thought there was no way Lane takes this job.
Mm,
And then I was thinking, so Lane's biggest gripe about being the head coach at Ole Miss is that he can overachieve with what he has, but he doesn't have the means to get the recruits and the facilities to get to that next step.
and this
But
game Saturday proved it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it did. Um, I think honestly, Lane, like their pitch to Lane should be, you have done more at Ole Miss than probably any most other coaches in college football.
Hmm.
Put your money where your mouth is and come beat Nick and Kirby with everything we can give you.
Hmm.
And let his ego force him to take that job.
And can you imagine like the recruiting battles that him and Sark would have in Texas for cream of the crop there? Oh my, that'd be entertaining as hell.
Yes, it would. Um,
So maybe,
Urban,
yeah.
Urban, I think his name's just going to get thrown at every Power Five head coaching vacancy right now.
Hmm.
I don't think he's fit. Two, I don't think Texas A&M stoops that low, if I'm being entirely honest.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if he would want to come to the SEC again because every other program has caught up with what he was doing at Florida and would every single one of them would kick his ass. He would have another heart attack or heart problem in give or take 2.5 seasons.
Right. Yeah. Talk about people that can't clean up their own messes. I mean, he's left like disgraced from his last three jobs. I mean, obviously Jacksonville, that whole thing. Ohio State and not, reporting to superiors about domestic violence and stuff like that. Not a
When
good look. And then
you
just Florida.
tarnish Ohio State's name that's
Right.
already mud, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, ah,
It's tough to do.
yeah.
But he did it, damn it. He did it.
Next one, Dan Mullen. I think this is one of the few jobs that he would come back for.
He wouldn't I was trying to make the argument that Kirby talked about it, and then obviously Dan talked about it about not wanting to recruit. Um, with the NIL behind him and all that, I don't know how much. Obviously, he's still going to have to do recruiting and stuff like that, but it would be a lot easier because their NIL is way more developed and funded and all that than Florida's. Florida's still kind of a mess
Yeah,
right now, so I think it would be an easier job for him. I think he would be have a better chance of succeeding at Texas A&M than he would have at Florida if he had not been fired.
yeah. I think based on that alone, I think that Texas A&M is one of the few jobs that he could really exceed in recruiting.
Or he
And
might he might go back to Mississippi State. I
oh,
wonder.
um, and
Yeah.
then last but not least, I think Mike Elko is probably. I would say if I'm just purely speculating, which all of this is, I think Mike Elko is probably the leader in the clubhouse for me because
Oh.
he is he was the defensive coordinator under all of Texas A&M's good teams under Jimbo Fisher.
Hmm.
He took a 3-9 Duke program, turned them around in one season to 6-4. Next year 9-3, and this year they only lost one game with their starting quarterback,
Hmm.
and that was to a top 10 Notre Dame team at the time. So it's not splashy like pretty much every other name on this list.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to build a program that can compete, Mike Elko's the answer.
One more like super super dark horse one, and it was in Robert Barron's article that he had posted for Good Bull Hunting. It was Lions head coach Dan Campbell. I don't think he's going to do it. He has the Lions rolling, which is something that has never been said. That's not a sentence that's existed before.
Rolling uphill though, not
Yeah.
downhill like normal.
Yeah, not not a car that's on fire going into a lake. It's a legit wagon at this point. 7-3, no big deal. But I didn't realize that Dan Campbell he went to Texas A&M, so that might be something. I think he'd be a hell of a college coach if it doesn't work out in the NFL. But I don't see someone that's peaking in the NFL right now going to even their alma mater, regardless of how much they care about it. It's not the
Yeah,
same quality of life. Guys kill to try to go to the NFL from
yeah.
college, so I don't see it happening.
I think if Dan Campbell was a college coach, he could take Vanderbilt to the
Mhm.
playoff. Just motivation alone.
Yeah, everybody loves
Like
playing for him. No one's ever said a bad thing about Dan Talica.
it, Dan would like he would build a brick wall by hand while the team's warming up and get them so fired up they literally run through a brick wall to come out on the field.
When he
And
just
there's no
says,
doubt in my mind that he could physically build a brick wall. Like
mhm,
I assume he just knows how to do
he's the most manly man out there. If when he just says like men, like that, just I'm like fuck, let's go. That's all he
it.
has to say. That's all he has to say. I want
um,
him and Kirby. Yeah, can make anybody run through a wall.
and last not least, kind of a wild conversation that could be probably had in the off season. Is there any shot Bobby Petrino gets promoted from offensive coordinator internally to head coach?
Absolutely not. That I don't think
I don't
there's any
think so
way that's gonna
either.
happen.
I mean, he has more head coaching experience than the rest of the staff combined, and they didn't make him the interim coach.
Yeah. Was it the defensive coordinator? I can't remember who they did.
Associate head coach was
Oh,
his title.
do you? Okay, so I just looked up Bobby Petrino. Do you know how old Bobby Petrino is? Just take a guess.
Is it older than you would think or younger than you would think?
A lot younger.
Oh, damn. I was going to say
Well,
like 68.
oh, that was nice. 62.
Okay, not too far
I
off.
I would have thought he was yeah like 69, 70, something like that. That was my guess, but a lot younger than I would have thought.
I mean, you want to know who ended the night a lot older than they started? That's Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss.
There we go.
Um,
Okay, there we go.
so before the game, Georgia had already clinched the SEC East for the sixth time in 8 years under Kirby Smart because Tennessee, um, let's just say they're making some big dentures in Knoxville because the program just got their teeth kicked in.
Hmm.
Um, thank you, Missouri.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have been Missouri respecters all season.
Hmm.
But huge thank you to Missouri, even though Georgia didn't need it.
Hmm.
Um, and I haven't even watched the broadcast yet, but you've got it in here. Before the game, Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit said that Athens isn't known for being a raucous environment, even
Can,
though the Tennessee game happened last year.
hmm.
Um, broke the record for loudest college football stadium of all time, even though it is not in the top five as far as capacity goes. Um, and then there were college kids sitting at college game day this morning in the rain when it was 50 degrees outside, but
Hmm.
not raucous. And then even during I so the only thing I saw of the broadcast because Kelsey said she wanted to rewatch the game with me is
Hmm.
pregame interview where Kirby couldn't hear Holly Rowe when they were shoulder to shoulder and had to lean down to listen to her.
Hmm.
Um, okay,
Not raucous. Not
no,
enough.
no,
To
and
be, I think the last game that Reese and Kirby, not Reese and Kirby, Reese and Kirk did was that Arkansas game. In what 21 or was that last year?
the one where
Last
Arkansas, it was 21. The one where
year.
Arkansas, it was a noon game and they had like 10 false starts and a
Yeah.
safety on the day because,
Yeah.
okay,
That one. That was I think that was the last one. That's the last game that they did in Athens. And again, Nooner, super loud. But yeah, not Rockets. They just have short memories. Because usually those bigger games are on CBS, so they don't have the opportunity to be in Sanford. But regardless, ridiculous. I saw somebody out there before we get into the actual game itself talk about the Tennessee game last year being rainy, weather not being good, grass being too long, and all that. Kind of the same deal on Saturday with rain and just kind of cold and all that. Somebody on I think it was Reddit or something like that said that George was using chemtrails to influence the weather to slow down these big time opponents that they have, making it rain. Just
um,
there.
fun fact, um, it barely misted for probably 15 minutes of the game.
Did it really?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, as someone that was sitting inside of the stadium, I had a poncho on because it would be like intermittent. It would like
Yeah.
mist or sprinkle for like 2 minutes and then quit.
Hmm.
But it it towards the end of halftime, it legit rained for maybe 2 minutes. But that was
Oh.
at the
Okay.
very end of halftime,
Hmm.
and then it pretty much once the clock hit zero at the end of the fourth quarter, it started actually raining.
Perfect. Okay.
So that's kind of dumb. It actually felt warmer in the stadium in the third and fourth quarter than it had all day. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because I was wearing a poncho and drinking whiskey and coke. It's entirely possible.
Could have something to do with it. Yeah. Maybe the
Um,
lights extra hot.
the
I don't know. Maybe the
lights,
red lights are warmer. I don't know.
maybe the red lights are warmer. We need to figure this out.
Yeah, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Scientists.
get to the bottom of it. Yeah, we're not math, but science. That's us.
Yeah. Also, kind of weird for them to say. I guess if they said it before the game, it kind of makes sense because on the first drive, on Ole Miss's first drive, it like where the scoreboard reads how loud it is. It was a second down. Georgia, we got over 120 decibels on a
There we go.
second down in the first drive.
They
So
had a false start on that first drive,
first
like
play,
early, right? Yeah.
first play.
There we go. Not raucous. Not
No,
enough.
no.
Hmm.
But we're gonna get into a little bit of the senior night stuff here. I will say before we even say anything about it, Brock Bowers did not participate in senior night. Leave
Well,
that
he's not a senior.
exactly. Leave that exactly where it is because there
Yep.
were plenty of other juniors that participated in senior night. Just gonna leave it there. Um, but this is the winningest class in school history, 47-3, with a chance to tie the 2022 class during the regular season at 49 wins if they beat Tennessee and Georgia Tech.
Hmm.
27 consecutive wins with a chance to tie Alabama's SEC record at 28 if they beat Tennessee next week. 37 regular season wins in a row in
So
12.
stupid.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
over 3 regular seasons.
Hmm.
At just like if you stacked regular seasons on top of each other, that's more than three.
That was like
Um,
September, what, 2019, right? For that
yeah,
South Carolina game.
yes.
Good Lord.
Um, well, 2020 Florida if you count the COVID year.
Oh, I was looking at the home
Oh,
wins. My bad.
home. Yeah, yeah,
South
yeah.
Carolina wasn't ranked. Never mind.
No.
Yeah. 2020 didn't
Um,
count though.
and then 12th straight home win against a ranked opponent.
Huge. That right there might be the most impressive thing of all that. Really.
Um, I have personally nicknamed the game that took place last night the Slaughter in Sanford
Hmm.
because it was that was a top 10 opponent that took Alabama into the fourth quarter. Top 10 opponent that beat one of the, or the best offense in the SEC and probably the best quarterback in college football this year in LSU.
Hmm.
A team that beat Texas A&M at home and really Texas A&M's like Super Bowl of the season at that point.
Yeah.
Georgia made them look like they were not in the SEC.
No, we talked about it. Like Georgia plays again when they're feel disrespected or like they have an opponent like worthy of getting up for, they get the hell up for that. I mean yeah, obviously Kentucky was the first ranked opponent they played. Now obviously they've fallen out, but it was a beatdown. It felt like one of those like the Oregon game last year. I mean I obviously Ole Miss scored 14 points in the first quarter, and we kind of have talked about that before. That just kind of being Georgia's MO is just giving up points early and then just clamping it down and making adjustments and all that. But like, did you ever feel like it was in doubt at all?
I will say slightly disheartened when Georgia could not prevent Ole Miss from getting a fourth down conversion on those 2 drives.
Yeah,
Like the first drive and the second drive was a 3 and out, and then that third drive where they went for it on fourth down like 2 more times, and
yeah.
it's like, what what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, one thing that I think Georgia has done better at this year in games that matter is getting to the quarterback. They did
Yep.
it last week against Brady Cook. In it when it mattered, and the thing I said about Brady Cook is if you hit him, he will make mistakes. I mean, Tennessee even got an interception on him last week or yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The next play after they sacked Brady Cook, he threw an interception. That's kind of how he does it this year.
Yeah.
And then this week, Jackson Dart just didn't stand a chance. I
Mm-hmm.
will say a big part of that is something we talked to Grayson about last week. Their starting right tackle, injured midweek, out for the season. On the first drive, they lost two. offensive linemen
Yeah. Hmm.
and a referee. So it didn't help them whatsoever.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I thought it was actually a decently officiated game for the most part. There were some questionable calls, but there was also some stuff on both sides that they let go. It seemed to be one of those games where, they were just going to let them play, and if something was egregious, call it. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's kind of, I would much rather there be little to no penalties called than stuff all over the place when it's stupid.
I think Georgia only had two less penalties called on them than Ole Miss did. I think it was like Ole Miss had seven and Georgia had like five, so it wasn't bad either way.
Yeah. Um, so I'm going to read this next bullet and then just kind of put that into perspective because I think a lot of people don't just understand how wild this is. So Kendall Milton and Dejan Edwards both ran for 2 touchdowns apiece, as Georgia had over 300 yards on the ground and 610 yards overall. So big picture part of this. Um, Todd Monken had 0 games of over 600 yards of offense against an SEC opponent. Mike Bobo's had 2 games of over 600 yards against an SEC opponent this season. Both of
Kentucky
those
was the other one, right?
opponents do what?
Was Kentucky the other one?
Kentucky was the other one. Both of those
Yeah.
opponents were ranked at the time.
Hmm.
Like everybody take a step back from Mike Bobo's not that good. He only put up 30 on Mizzou, and he had shootouts against Vandy and Auburn. Mike Bobo's offense put up over 600 yards against 2 ranked SEC opponents this season, something that Todd Monken did 0 times in his career at Georgia.
Hmm. It was really impressive. That was I think I don't remember if we talked about it a ton with Grayson, before the game, but obviously Georgia's offense is no slouch either. Everyone talked about Ole Miss, and we spent a good amount of time talking about the running game, Jackson Dart, and all that. Didn't talk a whole lot about the Georgia offense, but boys came to play.
Yes, they
Even
did.
felt a little bit disrespected and took it out on Lane.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is with stories have come out here and there for years now about Lane and Kirby going at each other in practice
Hmm.
and how they would be supposed to be working on, like, hey, we're gonna work on run plays, and then Lane would do like a flea flicker bomb pass just because he wanted to beat Kirby so bad. He would
Hmm.
essentially cheat in practice to beat Kirby.
Hmm.
And I think Kirby was like, oh, offense?
Okay.
We got offense.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
if you look at their post game handshake, Lane just looked so defeated. Like he did not want to be there anymore. I mean, post game he
Something
talked
you
about,
didn't see
yeah,
on TV, Lane didn't really leave his sideline. That
hmm.
took place between the numbers and the sideline on the visiting sideline.
Oh wow,
Kirby walked almost all the way across the field to shake Lane's hand.
that's tough.
Yeah, not a
That's
good look.
no,
Not
no.
a good look.
Again, that might be one of the reasons why he might end up being the best fit at Texas A&M because he's topped out. He can win 10 games a year at Ole Miss and be comfortable. So I don't think they're gonna expect any more than that. I mean, that's the top end of that. They've only had, what did we say, two 10-win seasons prior to Lane getting there, and he's already had two himself. So
Yeah.
he's already one of the best coaches they've ever had, and he could easily, probably should leave for his sake. But anyway,
And then, Carson continued his streak of consecutive 250 plus yard passing games to start a career. 18 to 25 for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. I Carson not only like owns this record, but he now owns this record by 2 games.
yeah.
I
I think half of those he also has over 300 yards, so it's not just
he
barely
only
squeaking by.
so I want to say he only has less than 300 yards in 3 or 4 games this year.
Mm-hmm. It crazy for again a first year starter, even though year four in the program, but
A first
still.
year starter in what was, allegedly a subpar offense.
Hmm.
Just
I wonder. I know this isn't in here at all, but let's say everything goes according to plan. They three-peat. I don't want to, not to get ahead of ourselves, but just throwing it out there. Good vibes. Do you think he comes back and tries to get his own four-peat, his own repeat?
mm. I think it depends on what the scouts say because, um, I mean, it came out this weekend that there were there were NFL draft experts, air quotes on experts, because you guys know what I think about them if you listen to it since before the draft this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's projected round 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I do what you will with that information. I feel like the game he had on Saturday drastically increases that,
Mm-hmm.
especially considering the whole thing was he's not mobile,
Oh, he
um,
could run. He's got some wheels.
and he had what 30 maybe 40 yards on the ground on
Yeah, he
Saturday.
converted like a third and 12, third and 15 fairly easily. Like he's got wheels. He can run when he needs to.
Yeah. Um, God. Next bullet here is just about Brock Bowers. 26 days after ankle surgery, and I texted the group chat during warm-ups, and I just said he's playing because during warm-ups he was beating Kamari Lassiter running routes, and it wasn't just like running routes and catching passes. He was breaking and quickly. He was jumping for passes.
Mm,
I saw it was a little dig route where he had to cut hard and then jump for the pass, and he
mm.
caught it. I was like, he's playing. Period.
It's not fair for anyone to
It's
have to cover him. That's ridiculous.
and I texted Connor O'Gara yesterday after the game, and I said, "Have you figured out what species of alien Brock Bowers is?"
Mm,
And he said, "I think calling him an alien may be giving too much credit to aliens."
that's a good point.
Um,
Got to think.
so
Yeah, got to think of something else.
so, and I did.
Okay.
Coming up with wild and crazy comparisons and conspiracy theories is one of my favorite activities. Brock Bowers is the Terminator, but
There you go.
because the movie was already made in the future, they watched it and said, you know what? Instead of going back in time to kill people, we're going to go back in time and make everyone love us. And then we're going to get it started.
I like that. Like
I,
that. Because you can't hate Brock Bowers. I mean, even opposing fan bases like this guy.
it's one of those things of where, like, you can be upset that he did it to your team, but
Yeah.
he does it to every team.
Yeah, he's not disrespectful. I mean, he just goes out there and fucking plays
Yeah.
very well.
And if he is a Terminator, this is a joke before I even say it. If he is a Terminator, kind of makes sense that they didn't get everything right because there's no way a kid that young should have a hairline that far back.
Me and him, that's one thing we have in common.
Yeah, you're pretty much twins.
Yeah, I
Wait, were
mean,
you playing on Saturday night?
people are asking. I mean, have you ever seen us in the same room? No,
I
no,
I have not. I have
no.
not. But it's entirely possible that Brock Bowers did get his last touchdown inside of Sanford Stadium. I'm glad he
Yeah.
did get it. It was in the fourth quarter when the game was well in hand at that point. But if he does leave, which is still up in the air at this point, according to what Kirby said, because apparently there were scouts and agents calling him while he was injured, saying, "Hey man, you're a top 10 pick. You shouldn't play. You should just come sign with me, and we'll get you rested and recovered." And
Mm,
apparently, all that did was piss Brock off.
love it.
Yeah, apparently Kirby said that every time he got a phone call, he would call or talk to Kirby and be like, "It just pisses me off that they think I'm done." He's like, "I'm not done.
Dude, what if he did come back though? What if? What a I mean,
I don't want to think about it because I don't want to get disappointed if he
yeah.
doesn't."
He would solidify himself on maybe being like the Mount Rushmore of just all time just college football players in general, not just tight ends. He's already up there.
Oh, hey,
Fucking
he's the best
college
tight end to
football.
ever play the game of college football.
Yeah, that's without question at this point. He's going to win the Mackey Award twice. Should have won it 3 times.
And
Yeah.
in a season where he didn't play 2 games.
Yeah. Hmm.
Fun fact, we were all expecting Brock to be out until the SEC championship game. So I know I texted you this earlier.
Hmm.
If Brock gets an average of 80 yards per game and Georgia plays 15 games a season, he will break 1,000 yards.
Let's go. Let's go.
And a few weeks ago it was, you know, oh, if he comes back in the SEC championship and Georgia plays 15, he would only need 140 yards per game, which, you know,
Still, he could do it.
only sounds
Yeah.
absurd unless you're talking about Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
But now he needs 80 yards per game in play in 15 games.
Hmm. Definitely within reach.
Within reach. And wouldn't that be insane? You're talking Terrence Edwards, arguably one of the best wide receivers ever played at Georgia,
Hmm.
has 1,003 yards.
Yeah.
And then a tight end out of Napa, California that played running back in high school gets a
I didn't really.
thousand and misses 2 games.
Yeah. How unfair would that be to try to tackle him as a running back? Good Lord. Especially those kids out
Yeah,
there. Oh my God.
yeah. So we do want to hit on Ole Miss before we just keep on having a little, victory lap here. So Ole Miss started off hot, scoring 2 touchdowns on 2 of their first 3 drives, and Quinshaw Judkins scored on both of those. Kelsey called me a traitor because I kept him in my fantasy lineup yesterday. But I was like, honestly, with the way Georgia's played the run, especially on the outside this season,
Hmm.
I feel like that's just a smart move.
Yeah. And he didn't play bad. I mean, the 2 touchdowns definitely helped him. I mean, he was the only guy worth the damn on that offense all night.
And I think a big part of that is Georgia didn't give anybody the opportunity to make a play.
Yeah.
Like Quinton Judkins, top 2 or 3 running back in college football,
Hmm.
and he's gonna get his. I mean, he had, what is it, 22 carries for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Um, he was the only person to score a touchdown for Ole Miss.
Hmm.
That's the definition of he's good enough. He's gonna get his.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, and we already kind of talked about Jackson Dart getting knocked out of the game. Before that, he was 10 for 17 for 112 yards and an interception. And I feel like, uh,
I think he combined for more yards than both JJ McCarthy and Drew Aller.
I,
But yeah, anyway,
I mean, I think he had more pass attempts than those two combined.
he's close, if not.
Yeah. Um,
Sorry.
we'll get to that in a minute because I know for a fact that we have big difference in opinions on that game. But yeah, so Dart was knocked out of that game. To be fair, he got his ass beat while he was
Yeah.
in that game. Um, Georgia was sending C.J. Allen, Marvin Jones Jr., Jalen Walker. I mean, there was there was a spy, and as soon as they realized he wasn't running, that spy turned into a bullet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the defensive game plan was if it's not a designed quarterback run, make him wish it was.
Hmm.
Um, Spencer Sanders, my favorite quarterback of all of college football last year, did come into the game. Um, 4 of 7 for 61 yards, including a bad pass that Dayton Wade probably made the catch of the year on.
That was
He
incredible.
put Odell Beckham Jr.'s catch to shame
Hmm.
because Dayton Wade was horizontal, probably 5 feet off the ground, and made the catch well behind his body with no bobbles,
Hmm.
and he was actually pretty well covered. So
Yeah.
I,
Insane. Well, play of the day or game.
yeah, like I don't care if Ole Miss lost. I don't care if they got slaughtered.
Hmm.
That was insane, insane. I'm
Hmm.
very interested to see if Jackson Dart does come back. Grayson said that he intends to come back next season, so I almost wonder if they let Spencer get some more playing time, especially if that injury to his collarbone is more significant than they thought because he did go to the locker room for X-rays
Yeah.
shortly after that.
Because they still have an outside chance of getting to a New Year's Six bowl. Probably not great because I think Missouri and Alabama are probably ahead of them in the SEC, but they have a shot.
Historically, the person or the team that loses the SEC championship kind of gets screwed on a bowl.
Yeah.
So if they finish 10-2, I think there's a pretty good chance they do get some sort of New Year's Six bowl, and if not, what they get the Citrus Bowl in Florida, and they get to
Yeah.
go to
Not bad.
somewhere that's warm.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
um, and your next bullet here is read off Caleb's facts from the group chat because you're banned and can't copy and paste. So let me pull that up.
And I will say, those of you that know, I would double down on what I said to get suspended.
Well, we still don't even know what got you suspended.
I think it was a combination of things, but I think the reason why I got suspended wasn't necessarily the thing I said in the group message, but because my wife also got it too, and everybody admins one of her Facebook groups that she had, so it was probably a combination of that.
Okay, how far back do I need to go for these
Uh,
stats? Oh, got it.
okay,
52 is the most points Georgia has scored in a top 25 matchup inside of Sanford Stadium. The previous record was 51 points, which Georgia scored against Kentucky just a few weeks ago. Before that, it was 48 against Boise State way back in 2005. Once again, Mike Bobo's offense. Some would say it's pretty good.
yeah, that's fair.
Um, the highest scoring performance Georgia has against any opponent in Sanford Stadium is actually 81 points scored against Mercer in 1941.
Who could forget?
Uh, Mercer almost allowed their own record to get beaten against Ole Miss this year by giving up 73. So
Hmm.
just tie it back in there. Um, 52 is the most points allowed by Ole Miss this season, including the LSU game, and
That's
is
crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, and is the most points they've allowed since the 2020 COVID season.
Hmm.
I don't. I would love to know who scored more. Wait, was it the
Was that the
Alabama
Bama
game
game? Yeah,
where it
I
was
think
like
so.
56 something? Yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Well, that was like,
Um,
was that the get your popcorn ready game?
no, the year after was get your popcorn ready.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And Georgia had exactly 300 rushing yards, helped by Kendall Milton averaging 14 yards per carry.
Yeah, he did.
The only other game where they've broken 200 mark in rushing this year was against Vanderbilt with 291, and um, it's the first time since Mizzou in 2017 where Georgia rushed and passed for 300 yards each in a
Ooh,
game.
damn. Okay.
Once again, not a Todd Monken offense in 2017. Just you know,
Yeah, Jim Chaney of all guys did that. That's wild. Okay.
yeah, and that I mean to be fair, Missouri's defense at that time was really bad. I don't think Ole
Well,
Miss's is really bad, but it's not great. It's
well, and
good
we
for an
in
Ole Miss defense.
Georgia had Nick Chubb and Sony Michelle too.
That's true.
So
That's very
yeah.
true. Um, so Mark Richt and Stetson Bennett were honored during the game. There were actually a few more people. I don't know how much of this they showed on TV, but Mark Richt got his induction plaque for the College Football Hall of Fame, and Stetson received the Burlsworth Trophy,
The
which
second time,
is
apparently.
do what?
That's his second trophy. Or second
It
time
was the
he's won
first
that
time
one.
it was presented to him at a game,
Okay.
so that was kind of the situation there because I think his dad gave it to him on the
Oh,
field.
neat. Okay.
Um, but the Burlsworth Trophy is given to the nation's best former walk-on player, so it was obviously for last season. Side note on Stetson. It was rumored that the reason that he's on the non-football injury list with the Rams is because he went to a alcohol rehab program. I don't know how true that is. I have no idea how true that is, but that's been the rumor that hasn't really been disputed by LA.
Uh, hmm. Okay. So
Um,
okay. So they're not paying him because he's getting help potentially.
it's kind of what it sounds like. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Okay.
I don't know. Um, but as far as how he looks, this was by far the best he has looked since early last season.
Yeah.
Like he looked healthy, he looked happy, like he
Hmm.
was genuinely appreciative of the crowd. Like you couldn't hear what the actual thing he was getting awarded for on the field were. You had to read the jumbotron
Hmm.
because it was that's possibly the loudest the stadium was at any point was cheering for Stetson Bennett getting that trophy. So you
Hmm.
know, I don't want to throw any wild accusations out there, but that is the rumor that hasn't really been disputed. But he looks really good and he looks happy. So
Yeah.
really
Hmm.
happy that whatever is going on and why he's not with the Rams right now, it looks like he's getting through it.
And the Rams could freaking use him right now because they are
Yes,
hurting that quarterback. But yeah.
yes they are.
Hmm.
One of the more disappointing parts of the game, there was a golden retriever on the field before kickoff. Golden retriever was loving on all the Georgia coaches during warm-ups.
Not this one.
It was not Juice. It was not. We were all everybody in our section was super excited. We thought Lane brought Juice to Athens. I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, like everybody was like, "Oh shit, Brock's warming up." That's a 12 out of 10 excitement
Yeah.
level. It's
Hmm.
probably an 8 out of 10 that we thought Juice was on the field, just
It would have been an
chemistry being
incredible
something else.
would have been an incredible photo op for Lane to get Juice and Uga together.
Um, while you brought Uga up, so I know that they don't really show it a lot on TV, but you can tell that he is a puppy
Yeah, he is.
because he wants to walk the entire game. Like
Hmm.
his handler is walking him when the teams like when the game's on the other end of the field, they are walking him around the other end zone and like up and down Georgia's sideline and then back to his house and
Hmm.
then the camera will be on him and you'll see him like scratching at the door to get out and walk more. Like he is a puppy.
Yeah, at the spring game when they did the collaring ceremony for him, we were laughing because like he was dragging his handler and the other person that was with them because he was just like so anxious and just like not really like uh leash trained like quite as well as he
Yeah,
probably is now. But
yeah.
it was very funny. They're like, dude, this guy's gonna get after it.
Oh no, he's a puppy, and I talked about it on here before on how they're changing the breeding practices of the Uga bloodline so the dogs are healthier,
Mhm.
and he looks a lot skinnier than the Ugas of the past have.
Yeah,
So
he looks like closer to like the earlier Ugas, like 3'4" or something like that. He's not. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
he looks healthy. He's constantly running his handler ragged, walking around the field because he wants to be out and running. So I expect the reign of Boom to last a long
Hell yeah. Love to hear it.
time. All right, let's get into players of the game. Go ahead with the offense.
All right, so offensive player of the game. I don't think you can really make an argument for anybody else. Kendall Milton. Again, me being the resident Kendall Milton, I don't want to say hater, but shit talker a little bit.
Questioner. Questioner.
Questioner, yeah. Just asking questions is what we're here for about Kendall. But senior day, 9 rushes, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had some big runs in this game. This is the Kendall Milton that we all thought that we were getting when he signed on as a 5-star guy from California.
Healthy Kendall Milton's a problem.
Hmm. As long as you don't tackle him low, then he'll go down.
And Ole Miss didn't really try to tackle him at all.
I mean, I think there was two runs where he went untouched, just going through the middle for his touchdown. So,
And that it was like a 40 something yard touchdown.
mhm.
When the Red Seas parted, you knew once he got past the line of scrimmage, he was gone.
I think he
Like the
did one of those
stadium
runs like
erupted.
he did one of those runs. I think right through the hole that Amarius Mims created, and like that. It was so nice to have him back too. We haven't mentioned him, but that was good.
No, I think we'll have to throw him here on one of them as like an A and B kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So defensive player of the game, we've got Javon Bullard, 5 tackles, 4 of them solo, a tackle for loss, and an interception. Um, Javon Bullard's another one of those guys. He's just so good. He's gonna get his.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if you have the best wide receivers like group. Between if you're talking 1 through 4, 1 through 5, I think Ole Miss probably has the best top five in the SEC. Javon Bullard's gonna get his
Mhm.
point blank. Period. Like he's either going to hurt you or take the ball from you.
Yeah,
And
he had a hell of a game. I mean, that's just his MO.
it
That whole
is.
secondary.
And if you don't follow Javon Bullard on Instagram, do it because
Mhm.
I don't know if maybe there's some he's getting some like NFL draft rumors where people are saying he's not that good. He's the pettiness dial is getting turned a little bit, just
Love it.
just a little bit.
Hmm.
And he's every time he gets a big hit or an interception, he posts the video to his Instagram. And
I love him so much.
Javon Bullard's my favorite,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, I, man, I am so looking forward to a oh, what was the nickname of the play? Eric Stokes destroyed the Tennessee quarterback in 2017.
Oh,
Or not, maybe it wasn't Eric Stokes. It was Tyreek McGee.
yeah. Oh, it
Um,
just blew him up. Yeah,
yeah,
I can't remember.
part 2 next week.
Ooh,
Part 2.
Bullard
Just
might.
send
Ooh,
Tyke or
ooh.
Javon
Mhm.
to heat-seeking missile Joe Milton.
If you if you sent both of them and they both hit him at the same time, would the quarterback like survive? I think he would blow up.
Either just implode or be cut in half
Yeah,
on live television.
this King Solomon just straight down the middle, just cut him in half. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. Joe Milton's a good guy though, but
Yeah, I don't want Joe Milton to get hurt,
yeah,
but I want him to be
Nico can get it
hurting.
though. No, I'm kidding.
I want him to be hurting.
Yeah,
Like I want him to
question
leave that
everything.
game saying, "I'm really glad I didn't play against the 2022 defense."
Yeah. All right, so Boom's newcomer CJ Allen played really well in Pop's absence with his forearm injury. Led the team in tackles. He had nine total tackles, 4 solo, and a huge sack in that
Yes,
game. So yeah,
yes.
CJ Allen played well. I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, because obviously he's capable of it. He's highly regarded freshman, but he played well.
I mean, we talked about it last week. We know what CJ Allen's capable of, but last week when he was kind of thrust in with not a ton of snaps against Power 5 and SEC competition, he had a few moments where he was flat-footed, deer in headlights, and I told you guys last week. I said once he gets in the rhythm of starting on this defense, he is going to be good.
Hmm.
He proved it last night with a hellacious performance.
When he made some of those hits, like for a second, he's number 33. I thought it was Robert Beal out there again. I'm like, no, he's gone. Don't
Yeah,
matter. Yeah.
yeah. No, CJ, true freshman CJ Allen was
Hmm.
punishing everybody he got in touch with on that Ole Miss offense.
And he's not the biggest guy either, so for him to be able to do that stuff is even more impressive.
Damn, if our soundboard from early in the season was set up, he would have been the my God, a freshman player of the game.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
My bad, CJ. You get the my God, a freshman player of the game. I won't make that mistake again. We will have the audio set up for next week.
There we go. Oh, okay.
Okay,
There we go.
I just want to apologize. Hungriest dog. So obviously 1A is Brock Bowers, 26 days after getting tightrope surgery, no brace, no tape, out there blocking, cutting, making plays, downfield blocks. Um, Possibly his last game between the hedges, 3 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown, and you know, just doing Brock things. I
All
think
aboard that rocket ship. Rock Vember. No, I don't know.
Brock Simber.
Ooh,
That
Rock Annuary as well, hopefully.
um, we'll workshop that
February.
one. That
Yeah, we'll crowdsource it. Yeah.
and then for 1B, the entire offensive line.
Yeah.
0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss. Amarius Mims came back, made a huge difference. And what the offensive line, and I think Brock Bowers' run blocking had a huge effect on it too. But what they were
Hmm.
able to do in the run game, I mean, Kendall's 40 something yard touchdown was on an Amarius Mims block. Dylan Fairchild played his ass off. They're still rotating left guard between him and Micah Morris, who was wearing 77 for Devin Willock.
Hmm.
But this is this is the offense that we expected to see early in the season. Everybody's healthy. You got Ladd, you got Brock, you got the best starting five offensive line out there. You have
Hmm.
Dejan healthy, you have Kendall healthy. Andrew Paul in the fourth quarter was gashing the defense. You had old freight train Roger Robinson making his presence known with some big runs there.
Hmm.
This is, it may have taken until the 10th game of the season, but this is the offense that we knew this team was capable of.
Hmm.
And especially with that offensive line, they proved it.
I would much rather them peak right now than like back in September.
100%.
Yeah.
And we're going to do Calling the Dogs right here. If you would like to be on next week's Calling the Dogs, the phone number is 678-465-8020. And I'm actually going to step away and use the restroom while we do this.
All right.
All right, so unfortunately I wasn't able to call last night or earlier this morning, so the drunk and obnoxious thing's kind of worn off a little bit. I just wanted to give a message to those in sports media, especially people like Chris Marler. You can tweet it at him if you want, at Vern Funquist. People who keep insisting that Georgia is not being disrespected by media and have no idea where Georgia fans are getting that idea from, that media is disrespecting Georgia. Look no further than Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler and anyone else on ESPN last night, who talked about Georgia's win over Ole Miss, a 35-point win over a top 10 team that deserved to be there, and Michigan's win over Penn State, which was a 9-point win over a team that was on the top 10 just because that's kind of their usual spot until they lose to Ohio State and Michigan. And look at how they were trying to make those wins look identical in terms of what to these schools for them, what credit should be given to these schools for them. It's the same cycle every single week. They come in and they say, oh, well, this such and such team is going to be the team to finally beat Georgia. Georgia plays them. Georgia beats them convincingly. Georgia still hasn't played anybody, man. Their schedule's so weak. Oh, that team, forget about them. They weren't very good. Oh, the next team, though. The next team's going to be the one to beat them. Lather, rinse, repeat. Because they just cannot acknowledge that Georgia is still the best team in the country. Georgia is worse this season than they have been the last 2 years and are still the best team in the country. They don't want to admit that. They're terrified of it. They've been saying Alabama and Ohio State every year for the last few years in the national championship now. It hasn't happened. It's not happening this year, and they're terrified of that because they're terrified of everybody figuring out, well, we already know that they're a bunch of clowns and hacks and really do not deserve your attention whatsoever. Go Dogs.
Thank you again for our Brock Bowers, our Jamie, Caleb Tillman, not Caleb Williams, for
That was an
calling in.
assault when you called him that last week.
I I apologize, damn it, um, for calling in to call the dogs once again. And I agree with pretty much everything he said. But you guys, if you are not on the live stream or watching on YouTube, you'll hear it on the audio version. Um, so the other game he was talking about in in his Calling the Dogs voicemail was Michigan, who were 4-point favorites at Penn State. So we have to talk about the Jim Harbaugh situation before we even really get into this game. I'll let you go through this stuff, and then I've got some. We have similar takes on the Harbaugh situation, so we're going to be in line on this part.
Okay. So I wrote this kind of as the news broke on Friday about the whole suspension for 3 games thing. That was kind of floating around there a few days before that and all that. Maybe not necessarily 3 games, but that's what it ended up being. So before we even get to that, the NCAA at this point, they've kind of alluded to not having enough information to be able to like directly tie Harbaugh to the whole sign stealing thing, like directing or knowing about it and all that. All right, so it as of right now, it doesn't look like the NCAA is going to punish Harbaugh, but the Big Ten will, which not in their guidelines, not in their bylaws that they can do that. Okay, Michigan is your best chance to win a Natty since 2014. That Ohio State team with Ezekiel Elliott and all that. The SEC wouldn't pull the shit. Not to this nature. Not when you're about to win a national championship. I know there was shit with Ole Miss in Arkansas, Houston Nutt, and all that. And I mean, there's petty shit like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're not going to pull the shit when they're gonna. You're going to ruin it.
Look into Cam Newton getting paid to go to Auburn.
Yeah. Oh man, but the whole coaching thing, the effect that the sign stealing stuff, whatever. I mean, if they find that he's guilty of it and he directed him and all that, yeah, they should be punished. But at this point, it's too early. They haven't had due process. They haven't had the day in court. They haven't done any of that. But for the Big Ten to try to sabotage their CFP chances to appease fucking Rutgers, Purdue, the Hairless Nuts in Columbus, just a bunch of Nebraska. Fucking Matt Rule said, "Oh yeah, we're 3-5 or whatever it was at the time, but one of those teams scouted us." Everybody fucking scouts you, dumbass. Everyone does. They didn't need signs to steal. They didn't need any signs to beat the shit out of Nebraska. I'm sorry.
No,
but for the Big Ten to appease these mid teams in the Big Ten is outrageous. Again, off season, whatever. If they actually find something, sure, why not? Okay, that's fine. But to this point, they're just trying to. It's mob justice at this point. They have nothing to actually. I don't know to do. They're going to hear the court on. They're going to hear the case on Friday and try to put the temporary restraining order on there. So we're going to do this whole song and dance again on Friday. But even Kirby said knowing signs really doesn't impact the outcome of the game. But then Lincoln Riley on the complete opposite side of that said, "Oh, it's a double-digit swing." I don't know who you trust more on the matter, but I'm going to go with Kirby on that.
Any excuse on why he's lost 3 out of the last 4, 4 out of the last 5, something like that.
Something like that. Just too many games for USC and the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. But I think the part that I think really set a lot of Michigan fans off, including me, off the most was the news of the suspension broke while Jim Harbaugh was on the fucking airplane going to State College. On the fucking airplane. They showed him getting on the bus in Ann Arbor to go to Detroit Metro Airport, which is about an hour from Ann Arbor, right? When the news broke, when what's his face from ESPN had said that the 3-game suspension was coming down and all that, he was in the air more than likely, or and all that. He was informed of the suspension on the tarmac. He got off the plane and they had a meeting there, like a la Lane Kiffin getting fired at USC. They met him on the fucking runway to tell him about it, and it's chicken shit. Tony Petitti, the new Big Ten commissioner, he has no collegiate experience whatsoever. He ran MLB.TV, which I don't know how that necessarily qualifies him to lead maybe the biggest.
Running MLB broadcasting qualifies you to do nothing except for maybe run a drive-through line, because they're the one sport in the country that is losing viewers on a yearly basis. And what do? Say, "Oh, you want to watch the game? Go to Apple TV. You want to watch the game? Go to Amazon. You want to watch the game? Oh, you can't. The team's 15 minutes from your house, but it's a blackout today."
Yeah. It's stupid. And I understand the whole idea of like trying to get better network deals and having like TV executives is that because that's what the product is turning into. I don't care. This guy's not he's not it. And he's
No.
proven that abundantly at this point. He's fucking clueless when it comes to running arguably the most influential uh conference in college athletics. Between them and the SEC, I think the Big Ten actually makes more money at this point. But regardless, he's not qualified for it, and he showed it. The University of Michigan and the Michigan State Legislature are united on the front about getting behind Harbaugh and all that. The university president, the athletic director, all that, the fan base, obviously the coaching staff and kids and all that. We'll get to that in a bit, but I fully expect them to go nuclear on it. Remember when Dan Snyder with the Washington R words when they were talking about taking away the team from him and all that, and he basically is like, okay, if y'all gonna do that, I'm gonna burn this shit down, and I'm gonna let nobody's
Scorched earth.
claws skeleton free, So I'm like, Jim Harbaugh will do the same thing. Michigan will do the same thing. It will be worse. I can
Oh yeah.
guarantee you that. He's gonna find whatever skeletons there are to find. Michigan's gonna find that. Um,
Wait,
it's gonna be bad.
Does Jim Harbaugh's brother-in-law run a private investigation firm?
He has a shit ton of siblings, so he probably has something that could
There you go. You
that
got to
can
pull Ryan Day and get your
yeah.
brother-in-law to look into it for you.
Got to get your big brother to help. Michigan beat us. I got to get my big brother to try to look into stuff. But I know this is going to happen. The Michigan Board of Regents talked about what it would take to, or discussed at least the idea of Michigan leaving the Big Ten over this if the suspension came down. I for one, they're not going to leave the Big Ten, but it's fun to think about. And culturally, if you've ever been to that part of the country, they're much closer culturally to the South than they are to the Midwest. I mean, the Detroit metro area is not Midwest at all. Like there's a lot of history that you can go back and cultural, migrations and all that. It's much more closer to like a Southern vibe and all that, and even like tailgating and just the environment around the college. Like the people are fanatic about it. That's why it's the big house. That's why they have the biggest attendance. The biggest stadium in college football, 10th biggest in the world. Um, it'd be really fun for them to go to the SEC again. Probably not going to happen, but it'd be fun. But talked about the idea of leaving the Big Ten. Probably not going to happen, but it'll be a cool off-season thing to talk about. But this last thing here before I get off my soapbox, but going back to the Tony Petitti thing, this isn't necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but in my day job in public education, there are plenty of things that I can tell you that we do and people do to just justify having a fucking job. Tony Petitti is doing that.
Yeah.
He's doing it. He's like, oh, I got to do something here. Or like nobody knows me. I did not know who this guy was 10 days ago.
Yeah.
I knew we had a new one. I didn't know who it was. I do know. I know now. But just with that said, Big Ten should have let the process play out. You don't need to do anything. Just again, let the NCAA do their thing, and it's just it makes no sense to me. But again, if Michigan does something, if they did something and they connected to Harbaugh and all that, yeah, punish the shit out of them. But at this
Yeah.
point, you don't know. It's too early. It's reactionary.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so my take on this is the Big Ten, you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, in the bylaws of the Big Ten, if something like this were to happen, it is in their written structure that it is a responsibility of the athletic director and president of the university. And it is a finable offense by the conference. So what did they do? They wanted to appease Ohio State and the rest of the Mid 10 and
Mm.
say, we're going to actually we're going to suspend Jim Harbaugh for the rest of the regular season. Funny that they did 3 games on this week when it was rumored last week because
Hmm.
that third game would have been Ohio State.
You do it on Veterans Day weekend, knowing damn well it's a federal holiday.
Yep.
They're not going
No,
to be
and
able to stop
that's
it.
the shadiness of it. Like this is a backroom handshake deal.
Hmm.
They College Game Day talked about this was going to happen at 9 a.m.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then they waited for Jim Harbaugh to get on the plane. And then they announced it while he was on the plane on a federal holiday where he couldn't get a hearing. Between the shadiness, them not following their own rules, not letting the NCAA process play out, when what it was come out about the NCAA process that the FBI helped the investigation with was that
Mhm.
Jim Harbaugh had no connection to it.
Mhm. It
And
it
then
yeah.
they just wanted to appease the Mid 10 and suspend Jim Harbaugh. Now, the
Mhm.
entire thing's shady, and if this plays out to where he ends up being out these 3 games, and then the investigation says, oh, wait, he actually didn't know anything about it, my bad, and Michigan does not make an effort to leave the Big Ten, I could see Jim Harbaugh quitting just because of this situation.
Mhm.
And I don't think anybody can blame him. Jim
Yeah,
Harbaugh,
and
A&M.
yeah, they're oh god. He again, stuff that we've talked about. Jim Harbaugh is one of the pettiest people out there. Like when he was the quarterback for the Colts, Jim Kelly, Hall of Fame quarterback and all that. He was doing a game for the Colts, and he said that, oh, Jim Harbaugh shouldn't be starting this game. Jim Harbaugh went and found Jim Kelly and got in a fight with him. I think he broke Jim Kelly's jaw or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but just because he was talking shit about him, it, they're gonna do something.
Can we
I do.
settle?
Yeah.
Can we settle Can we settle this whole ordeal? Big Ten Royal Rumble. All the head coaches.
Mm. Ryan Day would get eliminated first. He saw. I
Well, he would get eliminated first because I think everybody else would just combine to push him over and then be like, all right, now let's fight.
mm. PJ Fleck would be sneaky in that.
I
He
think Matt Rule would be hard to get over the top rope because he's a bigger dude, and same with Burt.
Brett yeah, was it Burt? Yeah.
I think those two would be the toughest.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think Jim Harbaugh would be willing to lose a few discs in his back to hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wouldn't. Yeah, he would definitely not. He would definitely not quit. He'll find a way even to cheat and do it. Par for the course.
Um, I was about to say that's fitting.
Yeah.
But what we've gotten from this conversation is Jim Harbaugh will be the next Texas A&M head coach.
Fuck, he will.
Urban Meyer to Michigan, Jim Harbaugh to A&M.
Oh my God.
Do you
Talk
want to
about
talk
the
about
college
the
football
actual
world.
game?
The actual game wasn't that good.
Well, yeah, that's why I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You put it in here. This is the epitome of Big Ten football.
Mm.
Would you like to know? I just looked it up. Would you like to know how many passes were completed through this 60 minutes of football?
Was it 15?
17.
Wow.
17. To be fair, J.J. McCarthy went 7 for 8, and Drew Aller went 10 for 22.
And he really and Aller really didn't complete that many passes up until like kind of like it wasn't necessarily
Desperation
garbage
time.
time,
It
but
was
he had a touchdown
desperation
pass
time.
late.
Yeah. No, it was desperation time because when they scored that touchdown late, if they had gotten the 2-point conversion, gotten the onside kick, and gotten another touchdown, they could have won.
They went for two early in that game and didn't get it. They were chasing points as Michigan was up. I think uh, I can't remember what the
It couldn't have
exact
been
score was, but they
much
were
because
trying
they
to
didn't score very much.
yeah they were trying to get within three. They tried to when they scored their touchdown early in the game, and that ended up hurting them, or else they could have played it safe and gone for field goals and stuff like that. But the offense, both offenses were offensive in this game. Michigan did not attempt to pass in the second half at all. They ran like 32 consecutive running plays. The one time that J.J. McCarthy threw it in the second half, it was defensive pass interference and it didn't count.
This game was awful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, obviously, Michigan won 24-15. Um, and in here, we've got it. Drew Aller sucks. And I don't know if it's Drew Aller sucks or if the offensive plays calling is just that awful. Because,
They
don't get me
did.
wrong, he wasn't accurate. But I
Mm-hmm.
think going into the half, he had only attempted 3 passes. So
They
he
did
hadn't had an
fire.
opportunity to get in the rhythm.
They did fire the offensive coordinator today,
Good.
but
Honestly, he should probably
yeah.
go to jail with Ferentz Jr.
And Sandusky,
Yeah, put him in the
if he's
same
still alive.
cell. I don't think he is.
Good.
But yeah, so here's where we're going to differ on this game. This game tells me the Big Ten is not winning a national title this year. I
Yeah. Yeah.
it so Michigan, to be fair, they scored points, they had their game plan, but nothing looked good.
Mm-mm.
Like I if Penn State had a better offensive play caller, they would have scored points because every 3 or 4 times Penn State ran the ball, they got 8 or 9 yards.
They ran the ball really well against Michigan early on. They were pushing that defense around like early in that game, and then kind of just went away from it for whatever reason.
I just don't get me wrong. Michigan State or Michigan, excuse me, is twice the team Ohio State is, and Ohio State is the score against Penn State to me doesn't actually tell the story of that game.
Hmm.
I think once again it's all on the offensive play calling on Penn State. But is there anything about this season that has given you confidence in the Big Ten even winning a playoff game this year?
Whoever makes it, whether it's Michigan or Ohio State. I mean, obviously, I think it's gonna be Michigan, but they would be the fourth most talented team in the playoff. I mean, I think that goes without question. You can look at recruiting and all that. Um, Defensively, they're fine. I mean, they're not Iowa, they're not Georgia for that matter, but yeah, I want to be confident in them. The only reason why I had talked about putting like a small future on them is just the anger that would unite this team. Like nothing on paper, nothing from this game would scream out, okay, this is a national championship team. If you didn't know anything about the Harbaugh stuff or anything like that, it's like it's a very Big Ten game. Um, but it I guess it depends on the matchup. I think they could
I
beat
was about to
Florida
say,
State.
I was about to say they beat Florida State. I don't
Yeah,
think that's much of a question.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it might.
They're not going to beat. Well, probably not going to beat Washington. They definitely won't beat Georgia.
I was about to
Um,
say I think they could beat Washington. I think it would be a good
yeah,
game.
yeah, it would be. That would be
I think
probably at
Washington
least.
Michigan is probably the best, or I think it would probably be one of the better first round matchups. But I
Yeah.
just I think if you follow the eye test, the Big Ten's out of the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Ohio State doesn't scream out confidence. Michigan could go either way. I mean, I will say that I wasn't. I mean, we talk shit about Penn State because James Franklin is like 3-16 against top 10 teams at Penn State or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not super confident in them.
I
I don't.
just
JJ McCarthy's been overrated. He's fine. He's fine. He's not going to win you games. I mean, pretty much lost them the TCU game last year. So,
hey, and
yeah.
allegedly Ohio State, Rutgers, and Purdue gave TCU all of Michigan's signals, and that's why Michigan's big mad about this whole situation.
No, I think it was the two pick sixes and then just the kind of the shitty ref calls and non-targeting stuff that probably
Hmm.
hurt Michigan more so. But yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah. I just,
yeah,
you know, when I'm stumbling over my words here because I don't want to be too harsh. Because Michigan, I think they're the second best team in the country behind Georgia, just based on what they've done against all their competition this year. Penn State has a phenomenal defense. They put up 24 points.
hmm
I still think they're at the same ceiling that they've been over the last 2 years, though.
yeah, yeah. I don't think you're gonna get an argument out of me on it. I mean, the only reason why, even like in the off season or like before the season started, that I thought they had a decent shot at winning the national championships is just continuity. They have most of that offense back. I mean, Blake Corum. think this is his shoot. I think it's like his 22nd game in a row that he's had at least one rushing touchdown. Like I mean, he's a legit good running back. But that, I mean, really, when it came, push came to shove, he was the only guy doing
Blake Corum
anything
is
on
a
Michigan's offense.
dog. He was bleeding all over his face
Did the post game
because
interview,
he was the offense.
mhm, like frame that and put that up there, like with like Irk Russell, like his head bleeding and stuff like that for Michigan. Just Blake Corum sitting there at the post game presser, just blood coming down his face, and just he was at after the game or after they went back to Ann Arbor. Sharon Moore, the interim coach, and Jim Harbaugh, and then the whole football team went to the hockey game there. Blake Corum looked like he just got off the ice.
I, yeah,
Dude's a dog. I love Blake Corum. But did you happen to hear the post game interview with
I
Sharon
did.
Moore? He, I love the passion, but it everyone on the Michigan side made it seem like Jim Harbaugh was like murdered or
Yeah,
like actual prison.
and I've already voiced my issues with Fox's broadcasting crew,
Mm.
especially for the big noon games. But Gus Johnson said Sharon Moore put his ego aside and called the best offensive game that he was capable of, so he ran the ball instead of passing the ball. Um,
32 runs in a row.
I'm not even gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna
I
leave
mean, it
that.
worked. It worked for them. I mean,
It,
they won.
it did, but how much of that had to do with putting his ego aside?
He's the
Like as
offensive coordinator. Like that's what they do best. Is they're a power running football team. That's what they are.
he
Everything's set up on that, and play action with JJ McCarthy. Like that's their whole offense.
he did his job.
Yeah, exactly.
And between that and ESPN making it seem like Georgia or Michigan's 24-15 win over a bad Penn State team is the same as Georgia winning 52-17 against Ole Miss.
That is,
It
yeah,
just
makes no sense.
no, no. I
Penn
I
State. I mean, Penn State is always just they're going to be mid. We wouldn't it be funny if James Franklin threw his name out there for Texas A&M?
he will.
Oh yeah, I mean he does it all the time.
So I made a list yesterday. Um, and I know you're not in the group chat, so I didn't get your response to it.
Tomorrow at 3, I think I'm free.
Free our boy Mike.
T-shirts. That's in the next in the million store.
Um, so I made a list of teams that I think in the SEC that would beat Penn State: Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Tennessee,
Yeah. Hmm.
and teams that would have a 50-50 chance with Penn State: South Carolina, Kentucky, and A&M.
Yeah, I don't know about and
Kentucky and
now.
A&M, I feel a lot better about than South Carolina.
I was gonna say the opposite because I mean at least I mean South Carolina's like offensive line is just destroyed, but they still have Spencer Rattler. That's the only reason why I would give them kind of the more benefit of the doubt over like A&M and Kentucky. But I mean Kentucky, they have Ray Davis, so I don't know.
Right. So I do want to hit on one more Big Ten thing before we move on to this next game. Ohio State. If we're being honest, the committee's probably going to keep them at number one this week, even though it's absolutely absurd.
That's a crime, yeah.
They beat Michigan State 35-3.
Michigan State doesn't have anyone left on the team. Like 10 people entered the transfer portal in the last like 2 weeks. Like they're
Well,
nothing.
Michigan State has the 46th ranked total defense. So,
Hmm.
okay. I feel like a lot of that is just the competition they play, which is
Big
mostly
Ten.
awful.
Yeah. Big Ten MAC teams. Yeah.
Would you like to know how many teams ranked above them in total defense Georgia scored 30 or more points against?
Say that question again.
I said, would you like to know how many teams are ranked ahead of them in total defense that Georgia has scored 30 or more points against?
I'm gonna say 5.
It's three. but
Oh,
Georgia scored 51 against Kentucky, who were ranked 6 spots ahead of them.
hmm.
And Florida's ranked 45th, and Georgia put 42 on them.
Hmm. Okay.
So, just throwing that out there. Basically, just reiterating that Ohio State's not good.
Hmm. They their wins haven't aged very well. Notre Dame has fallen off considerably since
Right.
that game. And then what was the
Penn
other one they
State.
played? Penn State, obviously, very mid. So Georgia has better wins at this point.
I agree, but the Ohio State of the SEC, that's Tennessee, they were favored by 1.5 points at
Hmm.
Missouri. Um, Once again, the dentist in Knoxville are making some real big dentures because that entire team got their teeth kicked in.
Hmm.
Cody Schrader, best running back in the SEC. I don't really know if it's a if it's much of a conversation. Since 2007, he's only the sixth player in the SEC to have over 100 yards rushing and receiving in the same game. Some other guys, just a couple names you guys might recognize: Percy Harvin, Dexter McCluster, and Alvin Kamara are the three other names that come to mind there.
Hmm.
And he's the first SEC player ever to have 200 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving in a game.
Silly, silly,
I,
silly, silly.
you want to know where Tennessee's total defense is ranked?
Uh, 50th,
Nope. This is going to surprise
69,
you.
69.
21st.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
Missouri did this to them. Yeah.
Mhm. But I will
Um,
say Tennessee on the road has been below mid. I think they're below 500 in the last, what, 2 or 3 years, under or at least under Heupel. They're under 500 on the road in SEC games.
that's fair. But I think at this point, Mizzou is probably going to make a New Year's Six bowl,
Yeah.
just because. I mean, they have what, two losses? One to LSU and one to the number one team in the country, or should be the number one team in the country.
They got
Um,
they got Florida and I think Arkansas left. They're not losing those games.
no, they are not. Um, and this was Mizzou's second win against the top 15 team this season at home. And the last time they beat two top 15 teams at home in the same season was 1976. Joe Milton, obviously just Joe Milton, fumbled on an RPO, and just
That was incredible.
Joe Midton.
There we go. It's stuck.
Um, I honestly, so the next thing here you got is, do we see Nico next week versus Georgia? I think there's a chance. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
real big chance because at this point, obviously, we know Joe Milton's not getting the job done against these better teams,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not competing for the East. You're not competing for a New Year's Six bowl. What is the harm in putting your 5 star out there, other than the fact that it's Georgia and they hurt people
Are you gonna
physically,
give him like
mentally,
the
emotionally?
yeah? Are you gonna give him the yips like DJU got a couple years ago? Like or
They hate Hawaiian names.
ooh, mm.
Georgia defense, big anti Polynesian names.
Them is that gonna be the thing that takes Kirby down? Maybe that I don't know. He's not tolerant
If
of the
Ohio, if
Polynesians.
if Ryan Day hears this, he'll get his brother-in-law's private investigation on it.
Kirby says all the Polynesian slurs, whatever those would
Oh
be.
yeah,
Um, no, but like it would be a similar situation to what Dan Mullen did back in 2021 with Anthony Richardson, threw him into the fire against the best defense of the 21st century in his first start, against that Georgia team. So I, I mean, I want to see it. I'm just interested in seeing something else. As Joe Milton obviously has been playing college football forever, and hasn't got it done ever. So I mean, I would like to see it just give us a preview of next year.
if he doesn't play next week, he gets a good bit of time against Vandy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to run through these next two games pretty quick. We got Utah at Washington. Washington won this game 35-28. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce this name.
I think it's
Uh,
Alfonso Tuputala. I don't know. Alfonso.
Yep. So wild turn of events towards the end of the game. Pick six should have been dropped the ball at the one, and then Washington got a safety on one of the next plays because Utah recovered the ball at the one.
Hmm.
Just okay.
It would make Deshaun Jackson very proud. Like that was it wasn't even in question that he dropped it at the one. It was bad. It was very bad.
Washington still undefeated. They at this point will play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship because USC got beat by Oregon. Oregon did not cover the 15. 36-27 was the final on that one. Bo Nix had 4 touchdowns and 412 yards passing, and Oregon had 2 separate passes go at least 74 yards. One of them was 84. The backup defensive coordinator at USC, better, but still not good.
Yeah, only let Oregon score 36. That is an improvement.
Compared to Washington, who had 52,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
better never rest.
That is true.
We're going to run through our bets real quick, and then we have some notes to get to, just some, stuff from around the SEC and the country. So I took Georgia to cover 10.5, got that. Michigan to cover 4.5, got that. Took Mizzou to win outright. They obviously did. I took Washington money line and the over, which ended up hitting. Glad I didn't take that spread. And then I had Oregon to cover the spread, didn't hit. Personal bets not all that great this week. Just throwing it out there.
Hey, your props
Um,
though.
Props, and I actually took one of yours and put money on it. So I actually came out in the black because
There we
I
go.
did not put money on Oklahoma State like I wanted to.
Good. Good.
Um, so I had Arizona State to cover 10.5 at Colorado. They won but didn't cover. I had Miami and Florida State over 50, and total score of that game was 47. So screw both of you. I did
Mm.
have Oklahoma State to cover 3 at UCF. Obviously, they just got demolished and didn't even win that game. Um, Arkansas to cover 2.5, not
Uh,
not good
ver-
once again.
very, very wrong.
I had
Sorry.
some wrong reads this week. It is what it is, you know.
Mhm.
Brady Cook 1+ touchdown, and then Ladd to have 65 or more receiving yards. By the time I got it, it was 69, but it's all right. He had 84.
There you go. All right. So yeah, overall you win 7-5
Yes.
this week, a very Tennessee-esque record.
Eh,
But
I take it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, so overall you're 56, 51 and 2. So again, still in the black, so that's good. Me on the other hand, we took a lot of the same big game bets or took the same side. I took Georgia to cover the 10.5. Obviously, they did that. Took Michigan to cover the 4.5, won by 9. Took Missouri outright. Obviously, cashed in. They won by almost 30. I took Utah plus 9.5. They lost by 7, or so they're good. I took USC to USC plus 15 against Oregon. So they covered that as well. I missed on the over part of that. So, can't win them all. But Texas Tech and Kansas, keeping up my streak of just not having a read on Texas Tech at all.
I
I
think it's
don't know.
hilarious that the only time they win is when you pick against them.
Well,
So when your
there's no.
bandwagon team looks good, your
Yeah.
bets look bad. You
Mhm.
cannot win with Texas Tech.
Literally, I think I'm like what 2-8 in
Yeah.
Texas Tech games this year. Like it's stupid. They I still feel like I'm on the right side of that. Texas Tech won by 3. They won by like a last second field goal. Kansas should have won that game. They were a 4-point favorite. I I don't feel bad about that. Fuck Texas Tech. Um, Duke at UNC, the over 50.5 hit.
That's the
I
one I
think
took.
yeah, I think UNC almost hit that on their own. I mean, double overtime, walk off
It
winner, and
was 42 or 43-34.
no, I think it was 45, 43.
Okay.
I think because it was double overtime and Duke. didn't convert the 2-point conversion, and
Yeah,
Drake
yeah.
May, it was a walk-off win in his last game in Chapel Hill. Yeah, his last game. Yeah. UConn at James Madison. James Madison, 24.5 point favorite to JMU. The under, I was wrong on this. Minnesota at Purdue. I took under 46.5. Purdue covered that on their own. That was just very wrong. Um, Rutgers at Iowa. I almost took the under on it. It was like under 27.5. That would have hit, but I didn't do that. I did Iowa to cover the 1 point just to win outright, and they did. They're gonna be 10-2, go to the Big Ten championship, and get, I don't know, probably keep it close against either one of them. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. And then the Oscar Delp, one or more touchdowns. I did not hit on that because Brock played,
Because Brock
or else
played.
that would have been his touchdown. But I'm not mad. I'm not mad about that at all. It's fine. So again, week 11 record, 8-4, very LSU e.
A&M.
Um,
A&M too.
A&M, yeah, they would kill for 8-4 right now. Um, and then overall 61, 52 and 1. So it's gotten better.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through these notes real quick because we know it is a long one tonight. So there's a four-way tie for second in the Big 12. Oklahoma State holds the tiebreaker, even though they got their teeth kicked in at UCF. It's because they beat Oklahoma and Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pac-12 still up in the air. Washington finishes at Oregon State and home against Wazoo in the final Apple Cup. Oregon goes to Arizona State and then plays at home against Oregon in the last scheduled Civil War. We might get canceled for saying that. Um, if Iowa in the Big Ten, if Iowa beats Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, do they make the playoff as a two-loss team? No, I think the Big Ten is just out.
Yeah, that's probably fair. They deserve it. When I first wrote that, I thought Iowa only had one loss. I forgot that they lost against Minnesota. So yeah, I could see Iowa doing that. Michigan might throw it just so the Big Ten doesn't make the CFP.
They might. That would be
He's that petty.
hilarious.
Jim Harbaugh's that petty.
That would be hilarious. Um, ACC. So Florida State Louisville should be an interesting championship game. And I do think Louisville, if they beat Florida State, they will have enough of a resume that I think they could make the playoff as a one-loss team.
It'll be interesting to see. It
I think
probably
it.
has to shake out a certain way
I
for
think
them to
it.
make it. But
Yeah, I was about to say. I think it really depends on what happens in the Pac-12 and the SEC.
mhm. Yeah, because if Georgia and Washington hold serve, then Louisville could make it. Could
Yeah.
maybe.
Um, Jaden Daniels. No one thought he was going to play this week,
No.
but he did, and he had 606 total yards, 6 touchdowns after he was escaped the guillotine last week. Um, and LSU is 34, 33, and 3 all time against Florida. 15 and 7 since Spurrier left. 11 and 3 since Tebow graduated. 6 and 1 of the last 7. 5 of those straight. LSU dominates Florida now. That's what they do.
hmm Is it even a rivalry? I don't know.
Some are asking.
hmm
Speaking of Florida, they're 5-5, and there's no way in hell they make it to a bowl game. Um, I'll say this for your sake, Mike. They'll see Como's naked next week and finish in the swamp against a top 4 Florida State. So, fun fact that I threw in here: Florida only has losing records against 2 teams, Georgia and LSU. They are
Oh,
exactly 500 against Missouri. So, if Missouri
ooh.
wins in Como this week, there will be 3 teams that have a winning record against Florida.
Is that just SEC teams or just like every
Yes, yeah,
team?
yeah, SEC teams.
Okay. Okay. Let's
Um,
go. Go Tigers.
I, it brings joy to my heart to know that Tennessee and Alabama are not in that group.
Ooh, yeah, right. That's
Just,
nice.
just makes me very happy. All right, we're gonna close it out here because we know we are running real long. So follow our social media at nothing.finder.pod on Instagram, at finderpod on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search us there. Make sure it's got our logo. Rate
Buy
and
our
review
merch.
show. What's up?
Buy our merch.
Yes, the shirt
Live.
is. I mean, the shirt is really cool. I'm not even hyping it up because it's us. Like, if I saw this, I would probably buy it on my own.
Yeah, they have
Um,
hoodies. We have hoodies too. The same design.
yes. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Send a screenshot. We'll send you a sticker. And as always, remember there is nothing finer in the land
Then a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.